City Council's work study session for July 18th. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first item is our trademarking policy. I think Beck and Brandy and Sharon have been working on this for a number of months, and it's for the new logo that I understand we want to trademark it.
So the first thing I want to mention is on the agenda cover sheet, it says it's on page 3. It actually starts on page 9 of your packet. And so the trademark policy is a follow-up from trademarking the wayfinding logo image. The first quarter of this year, we reached out to the state and actually trademarked the image. And if you recall, at one of the meetings, there was a host of items that the council wished to trademark. And then once it was actually sent off to the state said, well, you need examples or have actually used the logo before you can trademark it. So they reduced that amount to just 3 items, and that's marketing materials, jewelry because of our lapel pin, and the other one was, should know that one.
Glasses or something, isn't it?
Yes.
Unless it was like glasses or mugs or.
Yes.
So we've been limited in what we could trademark because we haven't used it.
Correct. So should the city move forward in using that trademark on anything else? For example, we want to use it on our vehicles, or if we want to use it on something else, if it's a larger item, we just take a picture of it, send it off to the state, we register it, we pay our fee, we're good to go. So during that process, in speaking with the state, typically when somebody trademarks a logo or the image, they are prohibiting anybody else from using it. And so what this policy is for is to say, hey, we're prohibiting it for commercial purposes unless you follow some guidelines that we have outlined. And then for other types of images that it's being used on, we're going to allow it. Again, you have to follow these guidelines. And the ones that the city is wanting to have rights to that is lodging tax recipients. So it will be in here, this policy has been amended to allow the lodging tax recipients to automatically use the image, again, based on the guidelines outlined. And then we will also cover that in their contract once they're awarded through the lodging tax process. And that's one of the discussions that came out of the Economic Development Tourism Committee. So that's in here. There was also discussion at the committee level as to, do we charge a fee for the application? So if somebody wanted to use the logo, do we want to charge a fee? There was some discussion that says if it's for nonprofits, it's for lodging tax purposes, it's marketing our town. We probably want to have a small application process fee, but if it's for commercial goods and, for-profit companies are benefiting it, then maybe we want to put some limitations on it. The committee also asked how would that look as to if we were to be charged a royalty fee on for-profits or even nonprofits. We looked to the city treasurer. The treasurer did some research and came back and said, well, you can do that, but it's basically on an honor system. So if we were to do a royalty fee, it'd be based on an honor system that they report it to the city, and it's a lot of resources for probably something so minor. So long story short, went back to the committee. The committee said, hey, let's not charge, we'll just do a flat fee, and then if it gets out of hand, then it'll be brought back for the council for them to reconsider. So those guidelines are outlined in this policy.
So what is that fee, Brandy? $100. Okay. One time.
So the committee was deciding between $50 to $100. You're probably going to recoup more of a staff processing time from the 100 versus the 50, but it's whatever the council decides.
Yeah.
Yep.
We wanted to do 2 things. We wanted the people putting on events downtown, and primarily automatically with LTAC recipients, that they would use our logo in their advertising. But what's missing on here is the events that don't use LTAC money. There's a banner right now across the street for the Mustangs, and it would be nice to have, if they wanted, our logo on any flyers or marketing they're doing. The other thing that we looked at, and this was something that Councilman Chang had brought up, and that is if somebody wanted to do mugs or T-shirts and have a little kiosk somewhere, and that was the other element of this, is to be able to allow someone to use our logo and make Port Orchard T-shirts or Port Orchard mugs. And I think this is fairly simplified from what we originally were looking at. My only question would be on page 12, and way down towards the bottom of it, under guidelines, under general guidelines, the second bullet point said third-party entities must submit a pre-event copy of the final artwork. And I can see that, but do we need to do that if, like, the Chamber of Commerce is putting an ad in the paper and is just adding our logo to it? Do we need to look at that? You think we would?
The problem with this is gonna be policing it. For example, like on this application, page 23 of 28, this is in violation of what we just wrote. There's a grayscale logo, which is not allowed for in the policy. So this is gonna happen. People are gonna take photocopies, they're gonna do stuff, and that's what's gonna be difficult. And so
But there may be, okay, so
because
we need to,
The average Joe's not gonna know what Pantone 2322 means.
right, but we
So
may
it would learn
need to
that.
talk about that, because if someone puts an ad in the paper, they may need to use a gray tone and not use, they may not be putting in a
So we're
colored
gonna need
ad.
a gray tone or a black white version inserted in here for that.
Right,
Good point, Sean.
I thought there was something worked up already.
For black and white?
Yeah,
I didn't see it in there.
I didn't see it in there
not
either.
in here, but
But-
when we were first doing it, the
Yeah.
company worked out.
Oh, yes, yes,
They may
yes.
have made a black and white version?
We have it,
Okay.
we just haven't incorporated into this,
We just haven't used it, other
Yeah.
than
well,
Right.
in copying.
right.
Well, that's what's gonna happen is people are
Right.
gonna copy it. They're not meaning
Oh, no,
to do
exactly,
anything, but
right.
I think it's the application process that's gonna educate them on.
I think the other thing that was important to us was to make it easy
Right.
for our nonprofits that are putting on events to include our logo in their marketing material.
You know, we could also have a amnesty period for 1 year where anyone could use it. For example, and I'll tell you this, I am actually thinking of making T-shirts. But if I made T-shirts and other products, would there be a $100 fee per item or just per use? I mean, if I put on this application that I'm gonna use it on T-shirts, mugs, pencils, pens,
Keychains.
keychains.
He's got 5 items he wants to reproduce it on. Does he have to pay $100 fee, or is it costing him $500?
I think the intent was per application, and whatever you put on your application is the fee, unless,
20 items.
That's gonna cover it all in one
And
application.
anything else that I
And
can't
is
think
that,
of.
when you say,
Anything else
one
by Mark
time, is that in
Sires.
perpetuity? You know, like 10 years from now, I can still do T-shirts for no additional fee or something.
Those are good questions. You might want to say an annual.
Annual license.
Yeah.
So things I heard here, we need to add a black and white provision
Or
Okay.
grayscale.
or grayscale. A
Annual.
annual license fee. A limit of 5 items. Do we wanna limit the number of items come that are on an application or not? I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm just,
Well, I wasn't gonna do those items, but.
other, yes,
Or do you
no,
want it by-
maybe, don't care?
or is it by what we have been trademarked? So you have 3 options, the marketing, the print materials, the jewelry, and whatever the
Silent
3.
on it, you can put as many things as you want on it.
Okay.
I think so. I just
Okay.
don't think that,
We're
the
not gonna have.
United Nations is gonna wanna use our logo and send things around the world.
And if I could just
Fred's already designing stuff.
I know, this is
If I could just add one note too, that the thought of an amnesty, the city's trademarked this, it needs to protect its trademark, so we should follow the licensing rules for everybody so that we don't inadvertently give up our trademark rights.
And we're still in the procurement process for Public Works SUV, and when we get it, that's the first vehicle I plan, it's official use only, but that's what I'm planning on, instead of the black block letters, City of Port Orchard, to put, continue with that branding.
Nice.
But it's the city's brand. They
It's the
have
city's
right
brand,
to be
yeah, we do.
Different than.
I just want to make sure that that events that are approved for use on city property can use the logo and marketing materials.
Okay, we'll make sure that's in here. And then I think staff's preparing to bring this before the council next week.
I don't know if I could, obviously, Mr. Diener and Mr. Clausen are absent tonight, but there's no need for work study to excuse anybody.
Real short, brief, cease and desist letter.
That's right. Have form cease and desist.
All right, we ready to move on to golf cart zones?
And that should be on page 3. Starts on page 3.
Yep. Bjorn Bjorky from the general manager from McCormick Woods here, if you want to come on up and join us if you'd like.
Yeah, and on this issue, obviously, I have ties to McCormick Woods, and so if anybody has a problem, I'm more than happy to introduce myself.
Jerry or Jay, do you have a problem with Sean? We're not voting on anything this evening.
You just want to go home early, don't you?
We're not gonna let you- It's the last item and he wants to go home. Okay, so probably, 3 months ago, the golf course approached me about this subject matter. It's been to land use, been vetted there. There's half a dozen cities out there that have created a golf cart zone. You've got it in small scale in your packet. We've produced a bigger map here. And one of the provisions and what we've created is, and then was consistent with the state laws, can only be on streets 25 miles an hour. So it would be just short of Old Clifton, where the golf course, and then we've tried to make this zone encompass what hasn't been built out too. So, and versus naming these specific streets, just create an overlay. So as the golf course community continues to develop out, those other streets can be added. But this isn't something that could be used downtown or anywhere else in the city. It has to be specifically in this zone. And in talking to Bjorn, it's trying to create maybe a sense of community out in McCormick Woods where, you've got this alternative form of transportation. There's going to be community center, coffee shop. There's a restaurant, they're in the developer's plans. There's a restaurant there. It's not just the golf course and a coming outing. I don't think there's any plan for the golf course to utilize its carts. I guess you could, but it's more, Clancy buys a house out in McCormick Woods and wants to have a golf cart to run around down in the community out there. He's got to have, in the code that we've developed, you've got to be a licensed driver, you have to have insurance. It's 1 hour after sunrise and half hour before sunrise and a half hour prior to sunset, because there's no lights on these. There's no seatbelt requirements. They're traveling at 25 mile an hour. But you still have
There
to.
is a seatbelt requirement.
There is one? Okay. I stand corrected.
Under the RCW, yeah.
Okay. So if you're operating on the street. So,
Yeah.
Chief, we've consulted with you a little bit. Thanks for coming tonight. And do you have anything to add from a public safety standpoint?
No, I looked at this and I think that it's appropriate for the area. I've looked at the roads there, there's no problem with that. Enforcement won't be an issue. I'm familiar with golf cart communities, they have them all over the country. McCormick Woods is suited to be one of those areas. And I don't see a huge impact on the police department trying to enforce the golf cart rules. I mean, obviously, there's an educational process to make sure that if people are utilizing them in that fashion, that they have the reflectors and the seat belts. which is kind of an interesting thing. A lot of places don't have the seatbelt rule, but none of the modifications for a typical golf cart would be very burdensome upon the owner. They're fairly modest modifications. And from an enforcement aspect, I don't see any issues. And I think it would be relatively safe in that area.
Do they drive on the actual road or on that shoulder, that wide shoulder?
So my understanding is they could do either.
Yeah.
They could do either, so where they're prohibited, there's specific, prohibitions of where they can't go, designated bike paths, trails, things of that nature, so we're otherwise not prohibited. So I think you see them in that wide lane. Yeah.
They do have the ability to drive in the traffic lane, but most people would not do that unless they were trying to go around pedestrian walkers or.
Yeah, ironically, years ago, there were private carts allowed, but it wasn't allowed under RCW, so that's interesting. So this is new to the state,
Yeah, I think
5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think
This
that's
is when the state got behind this.
2010, I think, is
Something like that, yeah.
when they made it.
So there are, and since there are trails out there, and we've called those trails out that you can't, it's not intended to, and it's called out that you can't use golf carts on those trails, so that any pedestrian paths, it's on the streets, only on the streets.
How fast can they go?
Well, the golf cart could go as fast as you wanted it to go.
So they're not allowed to go more than 25.
Speed
but
limit's
they could go-
25.
They could go faster. Why
So
aren't
your
we?
average golf cart that you buy has governors on it, but I mean, if you wanted to be crazy and make a golf cart that way 80 miles an hour, you could do it.
Let's say that again.
Most
What's
are
it?
set to 12. Most are set to 12.
12 miles per hour?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can change it electronically.
Oh, interesting.
But it's still a limit to that. 25, 35 is usually the high end that you can use.
Okay.
That's fast.
Yeah,
and a little-
yeah, it's.
Why wouldn't we allow it in other parts of the city?
The RCW doesn't allow it. You couldn't travel, it would only be applicable on roads that are 25 miles an hour.
Well,
So we
it's
could,
city.
we could, it'd be tough to, tougher to enforce.
It'd be McCormick Woods is the type of area that is typical of the type of golf cart community. Where I live on Kitsap Street is not. And there,
Is it traffic counts or is it just the?
no, it's
Shoulders,
just the
the road
street
width.
and the roadway and the traffic.
Parking?
There's a lot of issues there.
And I think that's why they talk about these zones, right? So you could, by law, if you had a street in the city that was 25 miles an hour, you could draw a little circle around, it's allowed by.
Some
CW.
isolated
Right,
neighborhood
what are you gonna do?
where there's one entrance,
Can't leave.
one exit.
Go to your neighbor's house.
Well, what about the areas north of?
No, because Old Clifton Road, if down the road, the developer wanted to put some sort of
Crossing or?
crossing or, we could modify this later. Right now, Old Clifton Road is a physical barrier that would
In
prevent.
time, it's proposed, it's likely that when they start building on McCormick West, that, is this Glen Eagle?
No, that's Merrimack. Go
There
south.
you go.
Yep.
This would continue into McCormick West, and so you would not have access here. So if that ever opened up in time and this was all 25, then perhaps it could be expanded, but that's not the case.
But you're not seeing the ridge as being a potential candidate?
You have to cross the 45 an hour street.
It's, by state law, it can't be,
Okay.
Yeah.
unless
I would
there's,
feel left out if I was on the ridge.
well,
Well, you can move across.
Well,
or
we
they
like
could,
me, mine.
they have a homeowners association, they could build an amenity that allows them to cross that road or petition the city to lower the speed limit, but Old Clifton's got a lot of traffic and it's moving fast, I don't know that we'd want golf carts
Correct.
out there. Yes.
I've seen this, and communities that using golf carts where they were walking their dog behind the cart. Now, is that allowed?
So it's like a senior community or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, they literally are taking their dogs for a walk behind.
It's tough to police common sense.
I know.
You could do that.
And you know how you see people with bikes doing the same thing, right? Well, I've seen it with golf carts. Are we gonna allow that, or do we don't even need to put that in there,
I don't see this as being
an issue?
I know.
I have another
So you can do it
question.
behind your car too.
Is
I think the next logical step is to take this, is for us to conduct a town hall meeting out in that community, and I think the golf course would be more than willing to host that, you know, and they
That's
have.
already proposed,
Okay.
first week of August.
Yeah, we're looking to the first week in August if everybody could.
Can they use it for, can they have like their Uber for carts or something?
You can have a little taxi service. Pick some kids to go.
Like, I don't wanna drive to Merrimack's tonight, can I call Uber or something?
Well, you know, you still can't operate them impaired. I mean, the same rules that apply to operating a car apply to golf carts.
I think what you're gonna see is you're gonna have homeowners out there that golf, that wanna just drive their golf cart to the golf course. And you're gonna have people out there that wanna go to the restaurant, and they're not gonna wanna take their car, and they're gonna wanna take the golf cart.
So if
And-
we get lights on the golf cart, can you drive it after dark?
No,
No.
no,
That's
probably
pretty
a good
good, we
idea.
don't have lights on it.
I think there's provisions in state law, though. You can modify a golf cart with a license plate, turn signals, and lights, and drive it on any street, I think. You can make, but that's not what we're,
that's not.
that's not what we're doing here. These are truly golf carts that don't have those modifications to them. So it has, you know, a dawn to dusk provision so that, you know, you're not.
Yeah, you could buy a street legal electric vehicle or gas vehicle that
Right.
looks like a golf cart. that
As long as you can get a
meets all-
license, yeah.
You just won't be driving it to the restaurant lunch at night.
That's true.
But those are the type of things that I see that make McCormick Woods, a logical place within the city of Portland.
It's fun.
Is there a preference? That's the first week in August, first, second, or third? We don't have a city council meeting that night on the Tuesday. Is the first, the second is a Wednesday, the Thursday's the third. We talked about, I've actually talked about those 3 dates with these guys.
Would it
to have-
be in the evening?
It'd be in the evening, just like we're doing a council meeting here, but we call it 6:30 at night, just like we do a council meeting, and call it a town hall meeting. And you don't all have to come, but you're all welcome to come.
I think
And we
should
wanna
make
hear
a
from.
restaurant.
We would host the clubhouse.
Probably in the banquet side of the facility, yeah. Is there a preference on a date?
Why not the first? Tuesday.
Tuesday is our typical
Makes
council
sense.
meeting.
Yeah.
We have a planning commission that evening.
We'd be out there.
Yeah,
You don't have to come.
you might pull away my attendance.
Oh.
Oh, that's true.
There's actually a proposal involving McCormick Woods that, on the, for discussion.
Okay. Do we wanna go to Wednesday then?
I have no.
What Nick's saying is he's got a McCormick Wood centric issue at planning commission, and somebody from McCormick Woods might wanna come and testify at that.
Well, I think it's just most important that it gets hosted and that we create minutes of feedback. I think that's really what we're looking for. It's not about how many witnesses that are there. It's the fact that we're reaching out to the community and getting their feedback.
What Nick's just concerned about is a citizen who lives in McCormick Woods
Well, it's
wanting to be at both
conflict.
places.
Got it.
So
Make
maybe
it an alternate night then Wednesday.
Yeah.
let's do it Wednesday the second? Does anybody have an objection to Wednesday? Staff? I would think we should have somebody from the clerk's office there to, Take minutes
Make
and-
sure I'm available.
okay, so tentatively Wednesday the second. We'll publish that. Thank you, Bjorn.
Thank you.
I just got a couple little things for the good of the order I wanna throw out at you guys before we go into a quick executive session. If you hear anything from Fathoms, relating to their festival that's part of the car cruise, the state is increased or changed their requirements, we're not sure which it is, relating, to liability insurance on the state highway when it's closed. And they're having difficulty meeting that, I think it's $1 million liability policy that we didn't require, before. And so they're having a tough time.
We require $1 million
Yeah, we do.
on every.
So I'm not sure exactly what the issue is. I've just heard, we've heard from Fathoms that the state has increased their requirement or changed their requirements somehow. And it's a state issue, it's not our issue, so if you hear about it, just
So we can't waive it because it's not our.
It's not our issue, it's not our requirement, it's the state of Washington's requirement.
So right now, in order for the cruise and the Fathoms of Fun event to close, Bay Street, they have to meet the state's insurance requirements. And so, until they meet that, we don't believe that, that road will be closed. So they're looking into alternative, insurance policies to accommodate the state. And so just to clarify a little bit more, so the city used to apply for the state closure. And we met those insurance requirements because we're an insurance pool and we have more than enough according to the state. And so when we switched over the liability from those events, because they're not city-sponsored events or city-held events, the liability now shifts over to the event organizer, and that's where the issue is that they're trying to find a carrier to provide them that amount. That is, one, that they can have that amount, and two, that's not detrimental to their budget for this year.
So the parking lots aren't an issue at all, it's the closure of the road is
Which is the Fathoms event, it's not the
down the
cruise
middle.
portion.
Correct. Yeah, so I'm just making you aware of it,
Right.
because I'm sure you'll hear about it.
What do you mean for the carnival next year for Fathoms? They'll have this issue?
No, meaning next,
Cruise that's coming up.
They were closing Bay Street for the cruise?
yes, they
do
have,
every year.
yeah, they do have
Their
their
booths?
Up in the
The
center.
booths,
Tupperware booths and stuff?
yeah, all the booths that are down the middle of the street. So that's what the problem is. So, okay, next to Tremont, we had a pre-construction meeting in here today. It looks like the first active construction date will be August 7th. So anyway, lots of stuff going on with that. One of the, I know what the other, so they were very adamant that it's an active construction site, and once a week, there's a construction meeting. If for any reason somebody wanted to go to that construction meeting, coordinate through the clerk and I, for safety reasons, they can't have public or electeds or anybody just out wandering the construction site. There's dozers and equipment running around out there, and they don't want anybody getting hurt, so.
Where are they staging it? At the Wet Apple?
Yes, they're gonna put construction trailers
Okay.
up there after the building's been removed.
Have they talked about the impact, like one lane closure or anything like that?
There was a lot of stuff today, so there's a whole schedule. Jay was there for representing the school district for their,
Are they gonna get the word out to the public or?
there's a
is it
public
us?
meeting next Thursday, on the construction plan. That's all, it's just a process, and weather, and, I mean, there's a plan, and for those dates and, what they're doing, but, heavy rain being shut down for a few days could move things out a week. I mean, it's a 2 year, year and a
No,
half
I'm just
long
wondering if we
project.
should tell people to expect delays, take detours.
I would avoid
One lane
Tremont.
closure.
I would
Okay.
avoid Tremont if you
Okay.
can.
But the other thing is, think about when they did the culvert work down there. I mean, they were switching that all the time to meet
Yes.
their, they had a traffic flow plan for each element that they were doing. Tremont will be no different than that.
Absolutely, and there's the website is gonna be your best friend, We've got a link to it from our website, there's a project website, you're gonna be able to get all your traffic information and, what's open, what's not, what the detours are, it'll be published there. The bond pricing couldn't have been, I don't think, better. Our projections were 4%, the bond market's around 3%. Right now, if we would've went to a public offering, okay, remember we solicited a private placement, we got half a dozen bids, the lowest was JP Morgan at 2.09. So, phenomenal. I was a highly sought after credit, so, and we went with a 15-year term and a 10-year call. And then lastly, KRCC's policy requires us to have, annually, provide a letter that we intend to stay at KRCC for the coming year. I don't know that does it take council action, or just, or just affirmation here that we're gonna write a letter of intending to participate in KRCC next year?
It depends on what KRCC requires. There's no requirement from the council to delegate that. It's just that the council wants or if the KRCC wants a formal resolution or a formal motion.
So it has to come.
A letter from the mayor?
A letter from the mayor is all that's necessary, so. this-
If the council directs the mayor to initiate that letter, then I'm sure it could be done.
so, Heads nodding the right way, okay? All right,
I don't think we have any problems being a KRCC.
I think
We're not Bremerton.
you're absolutely right, we're not, and I think there's very good reasons to be in KRCC. Okay, so we are adjourned at 7 o'clock, yes.
You mentioned that there's a meeting on Thursday, now it's not gonna be for Thursday.
I think so, is that the reconstruction, second here, let me look at my calendar and I'll confirm that for you. I think it's the 27th.
And is it here?
It is in this chamber at 6 PM on the 27th.
Which meeting was that?
The Tremont,
Public
public,
construction.
public meeting for the construction.
We'll have somebody from the clerk's office send an email to the full council, and so we can gauge for a quorum if the council wishes to attend.
Okay. We will head into roughly a 10-minute executive session. Meetings, we won't take any action after